it's Lee from colouringqueen.net. I want to show you the Baker's Dozen colouring book. Now I bought this when it first came out because Wendy Edelson is an artist that I've reviewed her first colouring book before. I'll link to that below, but it was a set of alphabet letters and I was so excited to get that. I think I was probably the first one to buy it. I'd been waiting for it for that long to be released. Now this one is a storybook and colouring book. Now if you're not familiar with Wendy's work, she's a children's book illustrator, and a watercolour artist, and you can see some of these gorgeous thumbnails on the back. So what they've done is they've taken the watercolour art and they've really worked hard at them to make them into acceptable colouring pages, and then they've added a story. So Aaron is a children's book writer, so he's modified a story that first was released in about 1995, and they've sort of updated that and combined the two into this colouring book. Now it's landscape rather than the normal portrait style, so it's A4 landscape, and you can see it up here against Secret Garden size wise. It's got a glossy cover, as you can see it's reflecting in the light, and it's got all those gorgeous thumbnails on the back. So it's a colouring storybook. You colour the pages that you want. We're all familiar with colouring storybooks. There have been so many great ones lately. We've had the lovely little background type ones like the Buns and Bramblewoods from Leslie Smitheringdale. I should remember the title, but I don't today. Then we've got like Ivy and the Inky Butterfly. We've got so many storybooks lately. So there's some ideas here at the front, and so they explain how much of the grey has been removed to allow more natural looking flesh tones, and deepest blacks have been preserved. So a lot of the times when people make grayscale books, they basically just run it through filters to desaturate it, but they've actually gone through a more intense process here to try and get the best result. This is printed on paper that is coloured paper, but it's obviously printed in black and white. So the difference with coloured paper is with print on demand products, and this one's printed through Lightning Source rather than CreateSpace, is that the coloured paper is slightly thicker and has a slightly different feel to it than the usual trade stock paper that we might be familiar with. Now this book also comes in a hardback. I bought the paperback, but it also comes in a hardback. Now you can see off the page there's quite a lot of black outline around here. We've got the story on the back and then the actual imagery here on the front. Now if we just zoom in, you'll see how much detail there is on that page. It's just unbelievable. There's sort of tiny, tiny details. I mean, it's certainly not one for those with a visual impairment, unless they want to take on something larger. A lot of all that texture is already there, and you can just imagine how easy this would be to colour in. Now, before we do finish this video, I want to test it out with the pencils because this is on paper that's designed for colour printing. So I want to see how it performs. We've got our story over here. It's all about a baker's shop and the Christmas cookies, and I think the title sort of gives it away. And it's a nice little story as well. Now, if you wanted to use markers or something, you could of course use those and not worry about the text on the back. But the paper is not super thick by any means, so I would put a blotter behind it. Or what I use is a laminated piece of paper, because otherwise, you know, it may well indent onto the other side. Oh, this gorgeous. Now it's still quite a dark grey scale as well. which is good if you really want to see that definition and contrast between the two. But it may be too dark for some colorists. Isn't this gorgeous? Look at all those little ruffles. You can see all that lovely light shining through. So it's very helpful if you're trying to work out light source. It's already done for you. We've got our little 3 here, and these are one of the gingerbread cookies in the shape of St. Nicholas, which were created for St. Nicholas Day, which is, you know, the story. I don't want to give away the story, but there's all the St. Nicholas cookies. Now the pictures are only, you know, 3/4 of the size of the page, so people with a minor visual impairment may have wanted a bit more room, but you can always work with a magnifying lamp. That's what I use. Every now and again, look at the detail in these old dresses and costumes. Absolutely stunning. You can almost feel like you're in this bakery. Look at our beautiful horsey there. That lovely snow. Now there's a bit about the creators at the back. Some blank pages to test out your mediums. And then those gorgeous thumbnails at the back. I mean, they're just stunning. Now, there's not many pictures in here. There's only about 16, but as you can see, they're super detailed. So I'm just going to grab my polychromos. I'm just going to see how they perform on the paper. Obviously, there's many different types of pencils and many different techniques. I just want to make sure that we'll just try the polychromo on it, and we'll see how it goes. Now, I should have put a bit of paper behind it. I'm not pressing hard, I'm very lightly pressing, but we can see that it's going on very smooth. Try and do a bit of blending here. And I'm colouring standing up, by the way, so I will probably go out of the lines and whatnot. It's just when I'm filming, I actually find it more comfortable to stand. I don't know how other people film. They probably sit down, actually. But it's far more comfortable for me to stand up, except when I'm colouring in, and then it really is not comfortable at all. So I'll be going out of the lines. So that's blending in quite nicely. Only colouring very lightly. And I don't have my glasses on and I'm standing up, so it's going to go way out of the lines. But the purpose is just to see what the pencils are like on this coloured paper. So it's not the actual paper that's coloured, it's designed for colour printing, so we can see that there's colour on there. The rest of the book is black and white, of course. But polychromos seem to be working just fine on this paper. Now, Lightning Source printed this book. You know, print-on-demand paper is sometimes different places, different printing places that are printing the books. You can get different quality, but often it's a matter of using different pencils with that type of paper. That's why we've got to have so many pencils, isn't it? So it seems to be working quite fine. I didn't press hard at all with the poly. Hasn't gone through on the other side. So it seems to be working quite well. I might just grab my Crayolas and just see how they go, my markers. Now these are water-based, so they should be fine, but just to make doubly sure, I'll just pop a blank bit of paper underneath. And these are the super tips. So just cheap and cheerful, just to see what it looks like. Ooh, they go on super easy. And it does ghost through a little bit. So if you are using markers, especially alcohol markers, they will bleed through. But even the Crayola washable ones are coming through the other side. And make sure you pop a bit of paper underneath. But the good thing is it's not peeling or raising on the paper at all. So if you've got a hand injury like me,